So the notes that both C and D share together are C, D, E, G, A, just those two, because D has F sharp and C sharp. So they actually both share D, E, G, A, and B. So if we want to do a song over just the tonic of C and D, we would use the notes of D, E, G, A, and B. So all of these notes, no matter what order you play them in, should work over the two bass notes of C and D. Now the relationship that these two have to one another, as you can see here, is a whole step. If it was this, C to C sharp or D flat, then it would be a half step, but it's a whole step, C to D. So let's listen to just these notes together next to each other. This is them in an octave range. So if this piano were in tune, that would probably sound a little better. But for now, we're just going to talk about the relationships that the notes C and D have to one another. If C is the tonic, or the fundamental pitch, then D will be a whole step up, or the second note in that scale. If D were the tonic, or the fundamental pitch, then C conversely would be the seventh note in that scale. Now because D in its major form actually has the sharp 7, D to C sharp is a major 7, D to C is a minor 7th. Which doesn't sound too terrible because typically when you're playing a note and its 7th note, you would play the minor 7th. Oh, sorry. Gives it that funky barbershop quartet sound. So if we're playing every single note that both of these keys in their major form would have, every single note that both of these in their major form would have would be C, C sharp, D, E, F, F sharp, G, A, B, C, that sounds pretty odd and funky. But I think that gives us plenty of notes to work with if we want to build a song with just those two keys. And by keys, I mean, you know what I mean by keys. The key of C major and the key of D major. That gives us a cool figure to work with, a cool chromatic melody or motifs that we could use. And we have two of those that we could use actually. From actually three. So we would have C to C sharp to D. That would be one, where it's chromatic because it moves by half steps. Then we would also have E to F sharp. That's pretty dope. Let's see what that sounds like over C. Versus it walking over D. It sounds like it's resolving when you put it over D. E, F sharp, because it is essentially leads you to like some sort of cadence, a major cadence, versus over C. If you go F sharp, F sharp, doesn't quite sound like it's resolving to anything, but it does sound like it's coming away from something, because again, with this, it's starting with the major third, E being the major third above C. You're walking away from something into something, but you don't quite know what it is just yet. In our next chromatic thing, I'm just using thing because I don't know what else to call it. Our next chromatic thing could be F sharp, and G. So let's hear what that sounds like over C. I don't know whether it will sound like it's resolving or whether it sounds like it's coming away from something, but my guess would be resolving because G is the fifth of C. It's the dominant. So let's see what that sounds like together. So it's interesting because it is moving into something that creates the space for this to be resolved. However, it also sounds like it's not necessarily moving into C or resolving C, which is this fundamental pitch here. It almost sounds more like it would be introducing a secondary dominant or possibly moving into the key of G. Oh, nope, never mind. It doesn't sound like that at all. Nope, it does sound like it's resolving the C. All right, I was wrong. That's fine. So let's see what F to F sharp to G sounds like over D. It almost sounds like it has no relationship with that note at all. It really sounds like it doesn't sound like anything, which is just wild to me. Which has resolution and da. And it just completely gets away from what it could be. So what's interesting about that is that this D is still conversely, if you reverse it, would be the fifth of this G here. But with the D showing up below this, it just doesn't really sound like much of anything below it. That's interesting. If you move from F, which is a minor third, to F sharp, which is a major third, to G, that sounds like that could be something interesting to use as a melodic figure over this as a bass, but then where's it going after that? Doesn't really sound like it's going anywhere on its own. It sort of sounds circumspect, I guess. doesn't really sound like anything at all, which gives you something to build off of. That's the case. It's like, I want to move it towards that. I want this to mean something. So if anything, if you sort of use both the D and the C in that major seventh action, minor seventh motion, then you do hear this F sharp being fundamental to it in some way of like, hey, we're dancing around something. We're dancing around the subject. We're dancing around what could be. We're dancing around like query. Something interesting could be happening here. That's interesting. I don't know what words I'm about to say next, so I'm just coming up with words. Because my instinct is to go, da, 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 while that's happening. So what did I sing? So my instinct is to sing something in D major there. So to use this A, my instinct is to use this A but the A doesn't really work over the F. Because FAC is its own thing. That would be the fourth over C, like the major fourth, perfect fourth, not major fourth, perfect fourth over C, and the minor third over D. So while we have this F here, it definitely adds that like query and that question of what space are we in right now? Da, 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 which allows us to understand that not every note that is in something functions with a natural sound or with like a natural relationship to those initial pitches. And by initial pitches, I mean these fundamentals of C and D. F does have a relationship to both of these notes. If you see the C major scale, like I say, it's the perfect fourth right above that C, and it doesn't actually come from our D major scale that we played earlier. In fact, it would be the third in the D minor scale. That wasn't a D minor scale, that was D like mixolydian or something. So, note query. That's what we're calling this one. Just gonna try and find the relationship between these two notes and build something around it. We're gonna start soft. We're gonna start slow. Sort of drones on, doesn't it? get the inclination to lift here. Where am I lifting to? Lifting to the C leads to what? What did that lead to? We just grounded ourselves back in that D.